Hi everybody, it's Kathy Vogan here and welcome to the 17th session of WikiBees. I'll just move my microphone out a little bit so you don't get pop, pop, pop the whole time. So we have a good lineup today. I'm just looking at the list of people who are already in. So we have Kitty, I'll just put this on for a moment, Kitty Hundal, Bruce King. We have Christy. Let me keep the glasses on, stupid. Christy Doff. We have Jose Rivera, live from Ecuador. We have Simon Floth from Melbourne, I believe. Simon's muted at the moment. And very special guest from outside the Ecuadorian embassy. We have Karen O'Reilly. So Karen is not connected yet, but everybody else is. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment. Just very briefly, in terms of the newsy things, we've had, of course, the accidental copy paste into an unrelated document, some text that relates to Julian Assange. And so it's hit world news that he has been charged. But those of us who have been really looking into it, looking at the fine details, there was an article in the New York Times that said that there could be 4 possible reasons why the US wants to charge Julian. We know that the copy-paste was done from a document in the Eastern District Court of Virginia. Now, so that narrows it down to 2 possibilities, and both of those are a long time ago, 2013 or earlier, because the DNC indictments of the 12 Russians was done from the District of Columbia. And then later than that, we have Vault 7, which, you know, a few of our analysts that come on are saying that's the one that really hurt. That's the one that got the CIA's backup. But that was in New York City. So what are we looking at as the possible source documents? We are looking primarily, according to Assange Legal on Twitter, at Assange Legal, all one word, of course. We're looking at the Chelsea Manning affair and some attempt at the time to try to implicate Julian in terms of incitement, you know, conspiracy with Chelsea and generally soliciting leaks. And then there's the Snowden affair, rescuing Snowden in 2013. So that was in Eastern District Court of Virginia as well. But according to Assange Legal and actually my own investigations, I believe that this is from the Chelsea Manning case. And also, we know that the Obama administration pretty well decided that it was, you know, unlikely that they would ever charge Julian in relation to that. It was just too big a problem. It was going to bring on a full onslaught attack on the First Amendment. So, you know, they've really capitalized on this. The world press trying to pretend that it's to do with the elections and you know, milked it as much as they can. But I feel that this was my call now is that it really was an accident, and it pertains to a case that in relation to Julian, it was decided a long time ago not to continue. So I don't know.
It's a false alarm.
Well, I don't know. I would advise you all to go to look at Assange Legal is a lady who is doing a PhD in law at the moment and has been digging up all the documents from that period, and I had concluded that it had to be 2013 or before, the document, the source document, this woman, I'm sorry, I didn't know her before, but Assange Legal seems to be thinking the same thing. I'd advise you to go and have a look, but I would be really...
I can show you that, actually.
Yeah. Could you screen share that for us on Twitter?
Yes. Can you see it?
Yes. Bruce, would you like to comment on that as well now?
Well, I'll just be reading it.
Yes.
I think you already said it. Well, I can just read it. Some journalists keenly cite FBI informer Marcy Wheeler's wild and eager speculation on the document that came out. But indications so far, in fact, point to the indictment relating to Chelsea Manning's case and WikiLeaks revelations of US wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, Cablegate, Gitmo. So
essentially, they're determining that because of the location of the grand jury. Since the grand jury is in East Virginia, they have jurisdiction over Chelsea Manning, and they have jurisdiction over the Iraq war logs. If they were going to press charges against Assange over Vault 7, for example, according to Hannah Jonasson, the charges would be in New York. If they were going to charge him based on the Mueller inquiry, the charges would be in Washington, D.C. So that's where she's coming to the conclusion that the charges are most likely related to the Iraq war logs and, what was the, or something related to Manning.
Well, there is the Snowden case.
And Snowden, yes.
Yeah, that dates the document to 2013 or before.
Excuse me just for a moment, guys, if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Simon. Hello, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
Bruce, do you want to take off your screen share now so we can see Simon?
Now that's might be an ironic point because I don't think that the so I was looking here on the live stream on YouTube to follow the comments, and at least on my computer it still says waiting for Unity for J, and there's no live stream. So
yes, that's correct, Simon. That's correct.
Okay.
Just
so
our live stream. We're going to upload it. We are recording. But the engineers who usually stream for us are both on the road at the moment, and you know, some of us are technically capable, but we just not we don't have the access really. So we've decided to record it. I'm recording it, in fact, and then I will upload it to one of our tech team, and then it will go on probably tonight or at the very latest tomorrow. It'll be on the YouTube channel, and we'll tweet out all the links, permanent links, instead of just stream links, which are no good after the stream is over. This is better, in fact, a little bit deferred.
Okay, and preferably my comment will be edited out. So do people know this? There seem to be live messages going on YouTube. Has it been an announcement for those people who are still waiting for the stream to come on?
Yes.
I think somebody did put it in the chat, but they might weren't doing it again, so new people are seeing that we're not recording live.
Yeah.
So there's a pinned tweets on Unity for J Twitter, and I've also forwarded that tweet to everyone in the Twitter channel.
Cool. Maybe you can edit out my questions and comments at this point.
No, it's scientific journalism, Simon. I think we'll get everything.
But just we need a message. We need a message directly into the YouTube chat now to just let people know not to wait. That we will have it. We'll broadcast it tomorrow.
Whose YouTube channel? Susie's? I don't think there is a YouTube channel.
Which one is it, Simon?
I just followed the Unity for J/stream, and it took me to YouTube.
And there are people chatting there now, are there?
Last I looked, which was only about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well, maybe. So
I just posted a message in the YouTube.
Great.
To let people know. I said we're having some technical issues, so we'll be recording tonight and posting the video later.
Perfect.
There won't be a live stream as planned. Really sorry. We'll be sure to have this resolved next time.
So we've both been very apologetic, can't we? Because they're really great in this stream.
Yeah.
Thanks for the heads up on that, Simon.
What was that, Bruce?
Thanks for the heads up on that.
Oh, I was late to the party. You guys already knew.
Oh, yes.
Most of that, yeah.
No, we didn't know about the YouTube going live.
Well, maybe we should resume our discussion so that, and I don't have to, I would probably want to edit all this last bit out and get back to the discussion about Julian's situation.
Oh, there's been a fair bit. There's been a fair bit discussed, I think, already. We should get on to Jose, I think, maybe.
Yes.
Hi, Jose.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thank you. And you?
Fine, fine.
Cool.
So Jose, there was an article written by Rafael Correa,
Yes.
which appeared in Counterpunch, and then you sent me a link to another magazine that it had appeared in as well. Do you want to talk people through that and what he has to say?
Well, Correa explained very well what has happened so far, you know, in Ecuador, you know, how Lenin fooled all the Ecuadorian people into believing that they were voting for something, and he turned and did something else. So Lenin's objective was to create a government within a government, a dictatorship within the government. So this dictatorship would make all the changes that they want to do in Ecuador in terms of the changing all the authorities, you know, all the government officials, the important ones, and from the electoral body all the way to the attorney general. I mean, all the changes, and they're all. The Supreme Court, as you know, was also removed. So he chose the leader of this temporary dictatorship. He is a very old man. He's a real fascist. I mean, he is really fascist, and he hates Korea. And you know, he's living his last days because he's very old, and they are just using him. Basically, that's what they are doing. You know, they put this old man, you know, to serve as an image, to show the Ecuadorian people, you know, it's a psychological game, you know. You know, they lead the people of Ecuador to believe that, you know, oh, that's such a, you know, nice old man, he wouldn't do anything bad. But the people of Ecuador doesn't know what he has done.
Well, I mean, it's not that simple because there are so many photographs of him and Rafael Correa arm in arm, and he he was, he was working alongside Rafael Correa for such a long time and in the same party. So we can assume that he's not, a naive and old man, that he had actually managed to fool Rafael Correa. In the article, Correa says that all of the objectives of the opposition were actually implemented by
Yes. Trujillo. That's the old man's name. He's a right-wing fascist guy, and that's why Lenin put him there.
So, Jose, when you say that, you've been telling us that the people of Ecuador weren't particularly well informed by the press about what's been going on there, right? Or misinformed. But surely, if that Citizens Council, is it the CPCCS? If that has been replaced as well with a temporary Citizens Council, the people must know about that. How do they feel?
Yes, but you see, the press presents it as a normal thing. The press never questions anything. They just show the Ecuadorian people that this is just a normal everyday thing and nothing is happening and everything is okay.
Yeah.
That's the picture that the media presents to the Ecuadorian people.
Yeah, and their vice
so
president.
The Ecuadorian people don't know. They have no idea what they're doing.
And do they not know that their democratically elected vice president, this one, is on a hunger strike?
No. I tweeted the other day, you don't see it on the papers. No, not a single paper or newscast of television or radio even names Glass at all.
So
Nothing.
Glass is on his, if memory serves, he'd be on his 33rd day now, is that right, of the hunger strike?
Yes. But remember that Lenin fooled Glass' wife into thinking that he was going to take back Glass to the first jail where he was buried. So he fooled her and told her, just to go take Glass and, to the hospital. And then after the hospital, he will go to the jail that he wants to go.
Yeah.
So the doctors, they just gave him an ID to feed him. And then in the early morning, next day, they sent him back to the high security prison.
Well, that's right. But a week ago, we had heard that he had started refusing water. So
yes,
if he's still alive, my conclusion then is that they are force feeding him.
And the problem is that not even his wife knows what's going on in there. And
they have to be.
He's isolated. He's isolated, and they probably threaten him all the time because that jail is full of criminals, and the worst of the criminals are there. That's why it's a high security prison.
Yes, but at the same time, it's a very, very high political cost to let him die. So my guess is that they're feeding him Ensure, which is what they use in Guantanamo Bay, which is basically a thick liquid. So they put tubes down into their stomach and they just pour it down. It's called Ensure, Ensure, to basically not let him die.
Yes.
That would have to be announced, you know what I mean? And cause a lot of trouble.
But the Ecuadorian government has published two official communications saying that they don't take any responsibility because this hunger strike is being done by Glass himself. He took the decision to do it, so they are not responsible for it.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, you could say that for everybody in the world that's gone on a hunger strike.
Yeah,
They're mad.
exactly.
They're mad. They've got a death wish, right? But I mean, nobody's gonna. It's the same thing as saying as Julian Assange is free to walk out the door. And somebody
Exactly.
aptly said, well, yes, just like he's free to jump off a cliff. Um, okay, so, there are very, very, always very strong reasons why somebody just, feels that that's the last avenue to just refuse food and die as an act of resistance.
Yes, but you see, the media, it's is backing Lenin, so
Yeah.
we don't know what would happen, because only the students 3 days ago, the university students went out to protest, but they went out to protest because their pockets were being affected.
Mm.
And that protest was, I think it was arranged, because the students came out in the morning, they marched, and then at night they had made a deal.
Mm.
And you don't make deals just like that,
Yeah.
because Lenin had already sent the National Assembly the new, the new financial expenses that they will have for the whole 2019. So it's officially, it's on the papers that Lenin sent. So I think this was just arranged, to make Lenin look good.
Can you tell us what's happening with the judge that needs to prepare papers for the Constitutional Court so that Assange's case can be heard there?
Well, they were just sent to the. They already chose the Supreme Court judges. Lenin chose them, and they should be by now working at the court, but they have a backlog of cases. So
Right.
I don't know what priority they will give to Assange.
So it's sort of like it seems like it's quietened down a little bit. Is that right? Like nothing's happening there in Ecuador. There's been no further statements about kicking Julian out, and he's able to have visitors now. Even Jennifer Robinson was able to go in there and see him, his lawyer.
Yeah.
So, it seems to have quietened down a little bit, as far as I can see.
Yeah, well, the official line is being repeated as, they keep repeating that as long as Assange, obeys the protocol, he is welcome to stay at the embassy as long as he wants. That's what they keep repeating. But you see, they don't say that the protocol is actually makes the Assange stay at the embassy become a prison. It's no longer a normal, a place of a political asylee. It's a prison.
Yeah.
Now it's a prison.
Yes, and Julian has not been able to tweet. The thing about the protocol is that it is not precise in terms of specifying what is permitted and what is not. In fact, it's discretionary. So, even in the courtroom, Poveda, the local lawyer, warned Julian that anything that he said in terms of testimony in the courtroom could be considered a violation of the special protocol, which was just
Yes.
imposed, not agreed upon. There's
Yes.
no room for a
Exactly.
statement there. So effectively,
Yes.
that's keeping Julian gagged, because
Yes.
the least thing that he says could publicly, he has still not been able to speak publicly.
Right. So you know the yeah. So Assange must be very careful what he says in court.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, I guess he has to just answer simply, you know.
Yeah.
Careful not to use any political, answers and things like that, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And but there is a ray of hope, because today there was a big protest in the city of Cuenca by the university students, and the government seemed to be very upset about that because they complained about it. So I don't know if we will wake up tomorrow knowing that they made a deal with the government.
Mm.
So we don't know that yet.
Right, yeah. There's always a ray of...
Jose, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Jose, I just wanted to ask, I saw that Korea had announced that they were organizing to run in the next elections in Ecuador, and that he was planning to lead the party that was going to be doing that. Can you tell us a little bit about that in the background?
Yes, as you know, Lenin is blocking our party, political party, to run in the next elections with our own name. So they are talking to other parties that are not right wing to make a deal, you see, and to see if our candidates can be included with those other parties. And but there is a dirty game that I must say we already saw the victim yesterday for one of those guys.
Oh,
Lenin,
what
yes,
happened?
yes, okay. In the city of Santo Domingo, there was a guy who he's a cattle, you know, he raises cattle for resale. But this guy is honest. So what happens is that the right-wing fascist party, the Social Christian Party, had already their candidate for the next elections to be the mayor of the city. So this rancher did not. He was a menace to them, a threat. If he run for the mayor office, he would win. So what Lenin did? He yesterday at 5 o'clock in the morning, he sent special forces police to his house in the countryside.
Oh.
But you see here, listen this very carefully. He had 2 guns that he had registered, and you see that the requirement is that you have to renew the registration every year. So he was doing those papers to renew the registration for those 2 guns. So who else would know those things? Only the government. So at 5 o'clock in the morning, they broke the door. He had guests because he had planned a fishing trip with some friends, and so they all saw it. So guess what? The police behind the police came some journalists.
Ah, nice.
So they showed how the police put the handcuffs on the rancher, and then after they took the pictures for the news media, they removed them and then took them on the car.
They took him away.
Yes. So you see, what Lenin did with a bad record, he cannot run as a mayor anymore because the law prohibits that.
Wow.
So
For the criminal offense.
Yeah, so that tells you that this Lenin guy is, and his, his counselors are very dangerous people. And this guy was honest. He, and the other guy is corrupt. And, now he's going to win the election because they took out this candidate from the picture.
Crazy stuff.
But this is really...
Yes.
I'll go ahead, Simon.
I can send you, Kathy, the video of the guy. You will see him there.
Yes.
Yeah, he went to high school and college in the United States, and all his friends are shocked. And so this came from Lenin. He's Lenin's people. Because you see, Lenin is not really the president, but actually the fascist of the Social Christian Party.
So is he in jail? Is he in jail, do you think? Or does anybody know where he is?
He's in jail now. I read that he could probably get 4 years in prison. Yes.
Right, okay.
Did you say 4 or 40?
Yes. So
4.
So I'm guessing, that his lawyer, I'm guessing that his lawyer is going to tell him to be quiet, make a deal with them, and quit the political race. And let the other guy, the right-wing guy, win. So, this is probably what's going to happen. So they're going to, they're going to say, no, we made a mistake,
Yeah.
Media.
Yeah.
So his criminal offense alleged is that he wasn't up to date with his firearm registration.
No, he had been off by a few days, but he had been renewing the permit because he has to go to an office. I'm suspecting that they were delaying his permit for that reason.
So what was his offense, alleged offense?
Well, as far as I know, he's in jail now.
You don't know why?
Because of the permit of the guns.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm guessing he's going to make a deal and he's going to say, okay, I'm not going to run for mayor anymore. And they will probably let him go.
Or he could fight it.
Yeah, because otherwise, you see, Lenin is using the government prosecutors to investigate the business deals, just like Mueller is doing to Trump. They can make troubles for him.
Right.
They can make troubles for him because he's a major, rancher of cattle and things like that. So, because you see, they did the same thing to the director of the communications agency for Rafael Correa government, because he escaped Ecuador because they wanted to arrest him. The government they wanted to send him to jail for $600 that they say he misused. He didn't even steal them. They just say misused. and that was illegal. $600. And they destroyed the guy's life.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, they are using all the tricks in the politics, you know, dirty tricks. All the dirty tricks, they are using it now.
I was just going to say before, this is and I'm just re-emphasizing the same point made many times already. This is an example of a story which is unfolding here, just through your information, Jose, which is on par with any major investigative journalism on any issue. This is a whole country undergoing a fascist revolution, effectively, and there's no attention on it, no attention in the country, no attention from the rest of the world, and so we've been trying to push to change that, and this is partly an example of the change, which is that this information is at least coming out to people who are watching this or aware of this movement and picking up on it via social media. But also it needs to go wider. So we've last week we put on the Discord server, we put a new channel which is under the actions section, which is real-time journalism. And I think everybody on this stream, or at least most of us, are on there and tweeting there. Sorry, and posting messages there, asking questions and getting answers to facilitate some journalism, because that's what we need. We need real-time journalism on a story like this to change the tide of perception, because everything about Assange is just in a, from most public's point of view around the world, is in a bubble of media misinformation. And the reporters and the politicians are convincing themselves that there's this other world where Assange is the one who needs to step out of the embassy and face justice, which is absolute nonsense. This complete virtual reality, and a story like this, which I think easily suffice to break that spell if it comes out. And there are various ways to do it. We're trying to do our best to increase the scale of this, but also it's entirely possible for all kinds of players we don't even know about to pick up on this and make a dent. For instance, there's think of your favorite investigative journalist, and they'll probably not be up to speed with the information that Jose is giving us. And if they were, they might take an interest in following up a story like this, and it gets published, say, in The Intercept or maybe even in The New Yorker or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be a revolution. That would be a media revolution and a corresponding political revolution and a corresponding, world revolution. I think it would. Anyway, so that was my little bit. I was just going to jump on. If you had, I'm a little concerned my battery's running out, and I was only a little bit that I was going to add today, but I'm hesitant to interrupt the stream coming from Jose at this point, because, like I said, it's such massive information. So I'll take a break for the moment, and there was something else I'd like to get back to at some point, but I'll shut up for the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, the channel's working very well, isn't it, Simon?
Yeah. Well, we have Jose there, and we're getting some posts regarding current pivotal information on developing stories with respect to Assange, because it's just not going to cut it to have journalists getting drip feed from mainstream media that they supportive of Assange, getting that sort of drip feed of information through Twitter and mainstream media, and writing stories on that basis. We need to. This channel is trying to really provide a hub for the most important breaking information for people writing articles. Ultimately, I think that's the most important thing, so that we're not, we're not all sort of finding out things with a lag and with incomplete information when we're putting stories together.
Yes. There's an activist in Ecuador at the moment. Did you know, Jose, that there's someone called Roger Waters, musician in Ecuador at the moment? I'll do a screen share so you can see.
Yeah, he'd probably know Pink Floyd.
Oh, yes, of course.
Did you know he was in Ecuador?
Yes, I knew I think it was 2 days ago that I think he landed in Quito with his plane, and then he had to go to the Amazon region airport, and that's when they denied the permit.
Yes.
And they tried to deny it, and then he probably talked to someone, I guess, at the embassy. I don't know, or with these evil people, you never know what they are trying to do. But I think Lenin didn't do any favor to himself by doing this. I think
Yes.
this was a very negative thing for Lenin.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
he actually refused to see Roger Waters, did he?
I think so. I saw a video that where Rogers names a few things, bad things against Lenin. But I was looking for that video, but I couldn't. I mean, because they put a voiceover in Spanish, so you can barely hear Rogers speak.
Right.
So there's gotta be that video somewhere. Maybe if you guys ask Roger, to send you that video, I don't know.
Yeah, well, he's doing a concert there, isn't he?
No concert. I think he's already in Lima by now.
Oh, so he just went to Ecuador specifically to talk to Lenin Moreno?
No, he came to the Amazon jungle to see the oil spills that Chevron left in the jungle. Yes, that was his plan.
And he's also interested in Julian Assange as well. If you can see the tweet, right?
Yes.
He's actually asking about Julian Assange, which is wonderful.
Yes. So
That's
it would have been a good idea to look for that video where he talks about Lenin really bad.
Mm. So do you know, Jose, the Spanish voiceover that was put over the top of Roger Waters' voice? Do you know if it was an accurate translation of what he was actually saying, or what? Does it seem to be?
Short, it was a short video, so I really didn't. I tried to look for the video in Roger's site, but I didn't see it.
Right.
So I don't know. It was probably maybe something that an Ecuadorian recorded.
Yeah, because there might be the original recording where there is no overdub of the Spanish. If you could maybe try and source that for us, then we could get that out.
Yeah, I'm gonna contact the guy who put out the video to see if he has the original.
That would be helpful to not have it him overdubbed.
Oh yes, that. I know. Yes, I know. So I hope I answered all your questions.
Yeah, thanks very much.
I will send you, Ms. Bogan, the ranchers, attorneys, public message, and also the video of the rancher.
Yes, please. Yes.
Yes. And there is a possibility that I could interview the rancher himself.
Well, in terms of what Simon has been saying, you have an amazing story there, but while he was saying all that, you know, me as a documentary filmmaker and whatever, journalist, I was immediately thinking he needs interviews. He needs people talking, you know, coming out of their own mouth, not reports, but actual interviews. I mean, obviously it would be great to get an interview with Glass as well. But
yes, I know.
probably not. I mean, that's the holy grail, really, isn't it?
No. Yeah.
But you know, we'd love to hear actual. We'd love to hear from the rancher. That's a terrible story, because that's part of the same thing. But anything else you can get, you know, that's the kind of journalism that we do. It's evidence based. So I think you need to do everything you can to gather material like that, interviews, and yeah, even Korea would be great as well. An exclusive interview.
He lives in Belgium.
We can get somebody in Belgium to do that, right? He's
yes,
still in Belgium.
Exactly. Yes.
But
exactly.
We can try. But anybody who is willing to speak to you or to your contacts and just try and gather the documents and you know, we can provide a place where you can upload those without having to directly put them, you know, publish them from Ecuador.
Yes.
We have to really think about keeping you safe and anybody else who participates, because this is obviously, you know, a very vicious and relentless strategy to shut up any other voices than that of the current regime, and that includes Julian Assange as well.
Exactly. So that's why Assange is in danger. He, you know, I had proposed to someone that I was talking that what would happen if Lenin told Assange, "Hey Assange, Japan is offering the asylum. The UK agrees with that. You either accept it or we eject you."
Japan? Why Japan?
Yes, because Japan, they have been meeting with Japan a few times without any meaning. So I'm suspecting there is something strange there, you know.
So yeah, that's very curious. I mean, the UK would have to be involved in that discussion as well, because the obvious problem is that to get from one embassy to another.
If the UK agrees and Ecuador agrees, they will just take him to the airport and take him to Japan directly from the embassy.
Well, that'd be sweet. Then he could come to Australia.
That's the problem, because you see, Japan will probably want to will probably have a secret deal with the United States.
Here we go.
I'll say I was talking with you on Twitter a few days ago about this. You and I were going back and forth.
Yeah. Yes. So you saw what he did to the rancher. So he is not that far from doing the same thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Japan.
So Assange should be prepared for a surprise.
Why would they have to put him on a plane and send him physically to Japan? Why not to the Japanese embassy in London, I presume?
But that's the deal. Do you remember what they did to Bertrand Aristide of Haiti in 2002? The United States did a coup. They removed from the presidency of Haiti to Bertrand Aristide. And then the same day, they put him on a private jet and they took him to Africa, to South Africa. And Bertrand Aristide didn't even know where he was. So when he landed there, they told him where he was. So I remember that story, you see. So So these people, you know, can do all those things.
Yeah, but I mean, it really ultimately depends on what the UK will permit. And if they
Well,
will permit Julian to be transported from one embassy or to another, or from Ecuadorian embassy to Japan, they already have to agree not to arrest him. In which case,
yes.
he doesn't
But
have
you
to
see,
go.
that's
He doesn't have to go
exactly.
with them. As soon as he's out of
Well, you
there,
see,
the people will.
exactly. But he would just change the place of jail, you know, from the embassy to Japan, because in the other country they would restrict him as much or worse. You
Yes,
understand
I
what
know,
I'm
but
saying?
they have to get him. They have to get him through the British streets. And as it stands at the
Well,
moment,
yeah.
they will arrest him
Well,
in relation
of
to the
course.
Swedish extradition. So that would have
Well,
to be
this
dropped.
yes, this theory is supposedly that the UK is in agreement. You know.
I can't see it happening, because as soon as they drop it, then Julian can just walk. He can walk
No,
through the
because
British streets and he can
no,
get onto any bloody plane he likes.
no, you
Although he
see,
doesn't have a passport, unfortunately.
but you see, my point is that they would do the same thing that they did to Bertrand Aristide. They would just take him on a car, official car, to the airport, and then to Japan.
Yes, it doesn't sound very realistic to me. I mean,
Well,
the Australian government would have to come in as well and renew his passport. He can't travel at the moment. It's been nearly 2 years that he's been trying to renew his passport. Australia won't renew it for no given reason. They just, computer says no. So that's one of the things that we're asking of the Prime Minister in Australia, to renew Julian's passport so that he can legally travel again. Now, I suppose he could travel on an Ecuadorian passport because he's
exactly,
right.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yes. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
They'd need to issue one though, wouldn't they? I don't think he's got an Ecuadorian passport.
No, they can make one passport at the embassy in 5 minutes.
True. Yeah. So I don't know if you saw that we just. I was talking to Mehdi. I think you're here, Mehdi, aren't you? And so we're planning to run a vigil segment in French. And, through those discussions about who we're going to invite, and one of the people that I have invited already is Jeremy Zimmerman, who, if you remember, was on the Cypherpunks. So just waiting for Jeremy's response. If you're watching Jeremy, that would be great. Really wonderful. And
that would be so cool.
He tweeted
pretty awesome.
He tweeted 4 days ago, so he's on Mamot, MAMOT.fr, and he put out, it's called tooting rather than tweeting. So he tweeted 4 days ago a very strong message of support for Julian. And he, if you remember on the series The World Tomorrow, he was on the Cypherpunks episode. Jeremy is a wonderful person. And he sort of stepped back from all of that for a number of years, but he is deeply concerned at the moment. So, however, what I wanted to bring up with you was that in looking at various material to try to find out, there's a whole group of people at the Pompidou Center that ran a that ran a conference in June 2016, a wonderful a conference, and Julian spoke at it, but it was the 4th anniversary of his stay in the embassy, and the foreign minister, Guillaume Long, who is actually of French origin. So Guillaume Long spoke, and it's one of the most beautiful speeches that have ever been done in support of Julian. And so it was buried in the middle of about 3 or 4 hours of material. So I've plucked that out and and I have put that, you know, up on YouTube. It's like 5 minutes long. I wish it had been only 2 minutes to go directly on Twitter, but it'd be good to get that one circulating. But Jose, do you remember the time of Guillaume Long and, you know, where we stood? This was only in June 2016. Ecuador's support for Julian was firm. And did you hear that speech by any chance? It's only been out since yesterday.
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, well, you can check it out on my Twitter wall.
Okay.
Yeah, and Fleur, one of our scribes, was saying, yeah, it's great that that's got a second life, because that is one of the best political speeches that was ever made in Julian's favor. It's beautiful. It's really very moving. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I listened to that for the first time today, and it was excellent.
It is.
It's very passionate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, how the times have changed in such a short time. You know, and at the end of it, I don't know if you watched it the whole way through, but then it just sort of cuts to, at the end, to Lenin Moreno saying, I don't approve of what he does, you know, interfering with people's private conversations. That makes me very uncomfortable. And those two sentences are not related. You know, who he's actually talking about that does the second part that makes him feel uncomfortable is the NSA, right? and GCHQ. Julian doesn't listen to people's private conversations. And we had Associated Press saying that he'd been hacking. You know, there is so much willful misreporting. Yesterday on Australia, in Australia, I had somebody one of our audience from politics in the pub rang me up, and he was deeply distressed that on every channel in Australia, they were still saying that Julian was hiding out in the embassy to escape rape charges in Sweden. Yesterday, every channel.
I just might chime in on that point with, there was one little gem of facts that was on the Assange legal defense page, I think. And no, it was by the same person on her personal Twitter channel. Damn, it's escaping me, but if somebody else knows that, they can tell people now. Basically, when the investigation was dropped, not only did they, they had a little press conference to say that, oh well, we're dropping this because he's just not cooperating and it's never going to go ahead, and we're just giving up now. But that was a staged spin on what actually happened, and I will actually dig that fact up and put it on the real-time journalism, just to give an example of that working. The other point that I was going to make originally was that that investigation, not only was it dropped, all the materials related to it, if my memory serves correctly, and I'll post this there as well, were destroyed. The files were chucked away. So we're still getting stories about how, from speculative reports from media, that if he were to come out, Sweden might reopen the case to, so that it's all still a live issue, but it's not. It was killed.
Right.
So I just want to append that to your comments, Kathy.
Yes. Yeah. So there's some other people who are in today. Bjorn, you're here. If you've still got the headphones on, we'd love to hear from you about the website, because we're wanting to put fundraisers by project. If you remember, Susie was talking about, rather than one big fundraiser for Unity for J, and we do need funds for some things, even though we can do most things for free, and for the love of human rights. yes, it would. We would have specific projects that we would ask people to give small amounts of money for that they felt that were a really good idea. So it'd be great if we could have an update on how the new website is going.
I gotta go.
Oh, bye, Jose. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Jose.
Good night to you all.
Bye,
Good
Jose.
night. Thanks very much for coming on. Very much
Take
appreciate it.
care. Take care. Bye.
So, Bjorn, I can see you getting ready to come on. Can we hear you?
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
Yeah.
you well. Yes.
Okay.
Hi.
Not quite ready yet.
Oh,
I'm going to be back in a little bit.
okay. Well, maybe Simon, if you could continue with that point you were going to make.
Yeah, what I was going to say earlier was just regarding Stephen Showbo's, the defence industry minister in Australia, was on ABC the other night. Now, I was going to ask Bruce if you would mind. Unfortunately, my version of Zoom at the moment won't let me screen share, but I've put a link in the real-time journalism channel, and I was hoping that we could play the clip. It's only a minute or two, and it's the first significant statement from the government that I've heard in a long time about the situation with Assange. So recently we had Pamela Anderson getting in a spat with Scott Morrison, and Scott Morrison essentially dodging the issue and just saying that the position hasn't changed. But the position hasn't actually been stated, to the best of my knowledge, by the current Liberal government. And I'm talking about, really nothing had been said at all by the government that I can recall of any substance since Julia Gillard falsely declared that Assange had broken the law. And of course, we recall that former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull had some very lengthy and incisive comments to make about that particular falsehood. And Ross Cameron had a segment on it. It took almost half an hour going over in depth, which is available on the, I'm absolutely certain it's available on the YouTube stream, The History of the Vigils. So since then, virtually nothing. Malcolm Turnbull never said anything when he was in office about the issue, but then he was replaced by Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison had this run-in with Pamela Anderson, and now the Defence Industry Minister in Australia, which is essentially defence industry, right? Military industrial complex. That's what it is. He's the minister for the military industrial complex. He used to be the trade minister. So a very senior figure has come out with some very harsh statements about Assange. And if Bruce, is that cued? Maybe we can hear him now.
Yep, I'll put it on.
Cool. No sound, Bruce.
So I was trying to do sound. I'll go to the tweet then and try and play it from there.
Okay.
I think you need to select share computer sound somewhere.
Yeah, when you do share screen, you need to click on the bottom left-hand corner so that it shares the sound as well. There's a little box,
Okay, hold on.
which shouldn't be there. It should just share the sound anyway.
little box saying...
Yeah, on your share window, it'll be on the bottom left-hand corner, share computer
yes, share
sound.
computer sound. Right. Okay, I'll try it again.
It was a statement that was said in a light-hearted way and probably did reflect some comments that had been made to him. But, you know, look, on Julian Assange more broadly, you know, I just think, frankly, this farce needs to end. I truly believe that Julian Assange needs to step forward and frankly, be a big boy and face up to the various allegations that will be put to him. If he's broken the law, then chances are that, you know, he will face the consequences that flow from that. If he hasn't broken the law, you know, then he should have faith in the process, because in the United States and Australia and Western democracies, we have the rule of law. There are plenty of opportunities for those to be reviewed, to be scrutinised, to be open to the public, etc. And so I think that this, frankly, farce that has gone on now for so many years needs to come to a conclusion.
Okay, so there you have it. You know, from the man in the know, it's a complete farce that Julian hasn't walked out of the embassy and put his faith in the justice system. You know, he should have every reason to trust the powers that be after spending 8 years, despite the UN ruling in his favour. You know, so there you go. The most ironic use of the word farce you could ever imagine. And I think this is another example. This is the kind of raw material that really needs to be capitalised on quickly by independent media to make a difference. And there's just, like I said, we just need to break this bubble of virtual reality, media virtual reality. But that was all I wanted to draw attention to in this.
Yes.
Well, I think that the Australian politicians don't know one way or the other if whether this inadvertent copy-paste was truly an accident or whether it was actually a move to push things forward. And so they're covering their bases that way, that if the Americans do decide to charge him, they're laying the groundwork where, you know, of public opinion in Australia, that he should just have confidence and, you know, go to the United States. And I mean, Christine Assange's, her message about the streamlining of the process has gone out to the whole world. So Steve Chiobo, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name.
Well, and when people talk about that he'll just come to the U.S. and have a very fair trial, because that's what we do here, nobody wants to talk about what happened to Chelsea Manning and what a show trial she got and what happened to her for 7 years in prison. So it's, I don't know, I think it's kind of a lazy way to think of it, that if he just walks out, he'll just come get a fair trial in the U.S. and everything will be okay.
Well, but that's right, and that was a very important part of Guillaume Long's speech, the foreign minister of Ecuador, when in 2016, when he made this statement about, you know, Ecuador being never regretting their decision and being very confident that they had made the right decision. There was the evidence of what had happened to Chelsea Manning to justify fears. And I think, you know, we've also seen the leaks, the emails that were obtained by Stefania Manning about the activities of the Crown Prosecution Service delaying Sweden as well, being made public. But once again, what people think in Australia is very, very important, because it's one of Julian's countries of citizenship. And I think it was quite good that Pamela Anderson replied. But what I did see was that there were, you know, certain politicians that were turning that in, bandwagoning with their causes and turning it into a kind of a Me Too issue. Didn't mention Julian once, but were going on about Scott Morrison not looking after women, complaining about Scott Morrison's treatment of women in general. And, you know, I feel that, you know, I put out a statement. If that's what you're doing, he already owns you. Yeah.
Well, I thought it quite notable, that particular interview we just heard there was no mention of Assange by the journalist who asked him that question. And there was no follow-up at all. She just said, "Oh, thank you very much for your time," at the end. So the question was originally about Pamela Anderson, and he went off and started talking about Assange. And another point I'd like to highlight, you mentioned Stefania Marizzi, can't pronounce the name properly, sorry, who is doing a lot of...
You just did?
I did already. Okay, wonderful. She's been doing probably the lion's share of the work with freedom of information requests for a long time, and hardly getting anywhere. I mean, you know, she's given us some fantastic stuff, but it's just the tiniest little needle in a haystack of information that's being shut out. And I think it's somewhat ironic that his closing comment there on the clip we just saw was that you know, we have free press, we've got all these wonderful institutions, checks and balances, you can review things, you can get public access to information, was the thing that he emphasized at the end. Right. And Stefania, with several others, is trying at the moment, making a very hard press for some crucial information on this case and being stonewalled. And apart from that, there was recently Julian Assange tweeted regarding a freedom of information request. I'm not sure who put it forward. I think it was Kelly Tranter, actually, here in Australia.
Yes.
Had made a request for the correspondence between the High Commission of the Australian High Commission in London and the UK authorities requesting information about their correspondence. And the reply was, this is just impractical to be able to service your request because there are 500,000 documents.
Yes.
So, you know, that just, you know, you can't imagine a more surreal example of public inquiry being shut down, and not just being shut down, but being shut down in a situation where there's this hive of nefarious activity going on, and it's, you know, 500,000 documents that we're not allowed to see. So, you know, it's a slam dunk case against everything that this guy that we just saw in that clip, and that's the official position of the Australian government. So this just needs to be in Indian media, and it needs to be pushed until maybe next time he goes on and says something like that, the journalists will actually say, "Oh, but what about this freedom of information stuff and the 500,000 documents that we can't see," and stuff like anything like that. Any other follow-up question, you know, is going to do something, I think, maybe to burst this bubble.
Well, I mean, that's true, and you know, I don't quite follow the logic of, because there's 500,000, we can't even see one.
Yeah.
Or I don't follow the logic of have faith in the process when, you know, police are usually, you know, obliged to get a case ready for court within days. And Marianne Nye, the prosecutor in Sweden, you know, it took 5 years to even ask some questions about a case. That doesn't sound right.
No, I mean, that's essentially it. Faith in the process is the key issue here. That one side is imagining that's valid, there should be faith in the process, and the facts undermine that on every single point with a mountain of evidence. So I think that's, you know, if you're an independent journalist and you're listening and you want to get into this, I would make that the central issue, faith in the process, and because we can burst that bubble very easily.
I think we can. I mean, and even, you know, the hot issue of the copy-paste of Julian being charged. I mean, if that does come from 7 years ago, at least, maybe 8 years ago, then why is it taking so long for the, if this is a valid charge, why does it taking 8 years for them to actually unseal it officially? Because the legal team of Julian have not, Jennifer Robinson said that they haven't received any notification of charges at all. So, you would think that, we're all presupposing, mainstream media presupposing that in some legal cases you can just take a whole person's lifetime to hold them. And that's actually what the NDAA permits. The National Defence Authorisation Act permits Julian to be detained indefinitely without having to bring a First Amendment challenge, without having to do anything at all, without having to have a prima facie case to get him across. George Galloway has taken this up, this asymmetrical relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States, that they don't have to present any prima facie case at all, if they ever do, to get Julian into America. And then he can go to, I don't know, he could go to Guantanamo and just stay
Is
there.
that true, what George Galloway says?
Yes, that is absolutely true. Yes.
I think so.
So what about the Laurie Love case?
That you will find, Bruce, that Christine Assange is saying that in the interview that I did with her on August 9th, and she is also saying that in the emergency statement. And in fact, George Galloway is just confirming it as a former member of Parliament who knows the law, that she is absolutely right. If the British wanted somebody extradited from the United States, they would have to present a solid case. And in the other direction, it requires nothing at all. You see, it's the same with the temporary surrender treaty that was set up with Sweden, where as soon as Julian arrived in Sweden, he would be incarcerated, most likely in Gothenburg prison. And then temporary surrender enabled America to borrow Julian immediately, and then give him back eventually to Sweden. So they had a kind of like first dibs on their case first. And in the case of the British, they have a cozy arrangement as well to get him to America without any solid legal process being presented at all.
I just think there are different views on that, because I seem to remember Greg Barnes, who's Julian's lawyer in Australia, giving a different view, that he did have a chance, Julian did have a chance in Britain of avoiding extradition. And there's also precedent in Laurie Love, who, I mean, Susie's made the point that Laurie Love is a British citizen, so that is one difference. But Laurie Love, the US sought to extradite him for computer hacking charges, and Laurie Love beat the extradition request.
Well, he didn't.
Apparently,
Sorry, I'm just going to quote Christine very quickly. So,
go ahead.
first of all, they didn't extradite Gary McKinnon either, and so both were British citizens, and both were. It was completely different. It was hacking, right? It was hacking. It wasn't publication, right? Or what they're trying to bring in is conspiracy with the whistleblowers. So Christine was talking about the fix being in, because they decided to announce that Larry Love was not going to be extradited. Sorry, I've got the microphone up there. The day before, Julian went to court with Lady Arbuthnot to, so that the good news about Larry Love would dwarf reporting on it wouldn't really hit the news cycle that was happening with the attempt to get this outstanding arrest warrant dropped for a case, an extradition case that has been dropped itself. So she's a lot less optimistic.
The other thing is that the Laurie Love case doesn't actually, Julian Assange, from what I understand, is not covered by that. He's actually excluded from it for two reasons. One is that he's not a UK citizen, and the other one is that it was intentionally excluded in another legal process to ensure that Julian couldn't use the same arguments. And I don't recall the details of that. It was something I read this week where they gave exactly that kind of an analysis on it.
Well, the other thing is, and I don't know if this is what you're talking about, it may be, is that in relation to people being extradited just for questioning, right, that the British Parliament voted to change that law, and it was changed, so people could no longer be extradited for questioning, but it didn't apply retrospectively, and that's how Julian was excluded.
Yeah, that sounds like the same thing.
Yes, well, I don't think we're going to get a good overview of the legal situation here. I just do recall the comment from Greg Barnes, Julian's lawyer, that it appeared that he had a chance. Okay, so that's all.
The other thing to keep in mind is that law generally, and particularly in cases like this, not always entirely coherent. So you can have pretext for one approach and pretext for another approach. But I think it's pretty clear to everybody that the British government is certainly going to be biased and be going for a pretext to get, that's not going to be in Julian's favour.
Yes, the government is not synonymous with the British courts, though.
Almost in this case, it is. In practice, we've seen every judge is given such a biased situation. As Kathy was saying, with the sequencing events and she's referring to information that Christine has emphasised in the past as well. You've got this, what do they call it? Choreography, almost, is the word for it. You've got a legal case that happens just the day before there's a judgment for Assange, and lo and behold, it's good news. It's going to dwarf the bad news coming the next day from the biased judge. And let's face it, that was the most glaring injustice when his appeal against the extradition warrant was shut down. There's just no way you can review that and not see it as a really gross injustice.
Yes, and I think you also have to pay attention to Christine's story about Pinochet in terms of the independence. I mean, the justice system ruled to extradite Pinochet back to Spain because he was guilty of mass murder. Or he's being charged with mass murder and mass rape as well. I mean, it was really hideous. And the British government intervened and overruled their own courts and decided to protect him, wouldn't extradite him. So, one could imagine that might go and, actually, I think I've read somewhere a long time ago that can't go in the other direction. That if the courts rule not to extradite, then the government can't step in and say, yes, we will. But it can work the other way around. I'm going to have to check that. But I think that point of law I read a very long time ago, and I thought, well, that's good news, right? But then, it seems that the legal people that are involved in this, and this is what is so incredibly spooky, is Claire Montgomery, who was the prosecutor at the Supreme Court, the final round for Julian when, it was up against Dinah Rose, who was just absolutely amazing. So, these people seem to be partisan, right? So she was prosecuting Julian, but Claire Montgomery was also defending Pinochet. And Garzon, Balthazar Garzon, who is, you know, he's in leading the case in Ecuador for Julian. He was prosecuting Pinochet. So it seems like it's kind of, you know, it's a very partisan game. People like Claire Montgomery are always on the side of the really bad people. She walked right past me. I don't know if I mentioned this on a vigil, but I was at the Supreme Court. I was filming, and I have her on camera, and it felt like Harry Potter, a Dementor, had just walked past. She walked right beside me, and it was very, very chilling to look into her eyes just after the case was finished. It was just outside the court. So, you know, you've got these people who get behind the wrong side of history consistently, and other people who seem to be like Garzon, who's had quite a lot of prosecuted, you know, victimization himself, who are always on the right side of history as well. I don't know if you noticed that, Simon. You've been following it for a long time.
Oh, absolutely. And as you said, the Garzon versus Montgomery, in the case of both Assange and Pinochet, really encapsulates what you're talking about. Just to your point, Bruce, about Greg Barnes. Greg is often emphasising the need for a political solution, and so I don't mean to try and say there's no chance that Julian has in the British courts. I personally think it could go either way, but I am convinced that the way things stand, if the public perception doesn't change, and I think that's what's key to a political solution, the public perception.
Yes.
Then you know, there's a big problem. And with this, because it's such a major issue, it might be that just having the case itself is going to burst the bubble of media virtual reality, because there'll be so much more attention to the issues, and that journalists will be taking it so much more seriously. So there could be a greater chance of a political solution in that regard anyway.
Yes, I totally agree. And if we can shift the public opinion at all, I think that's what we should be aiming for as a large part of this movement.
Yeah. Is
I think the process is starting to happen now, because what we're seeing is more of the verified journalists with the blue check marks on Twitter, you know, starting to come forward, and more articles are being written. There seems to be a buildup. And for example, the Reporters Committee in the US has applied to have the charges unsealed. ACLU and ACLU Nevada have made statements. So things are gradually building up, and I think we're going to see that perception changing because of that as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very good.
Well, if I could just weigh in on that. So if Assange Legal and I are correct, and the RC, what's it called? RCPA? The reporters...
we can't hear you, Kathy. Can you put your mic down? You just need to move your mic.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've done it again.
Yeah, it's RPC something, Reporters something Committee.
RCPA, I think it is. So I think they've made a good move in trying to, you know, I can understand why the press in America now are all anxious to bring this on, because, you know, they've been called enemies of the people. You know, we're in a climate where journalists are being murdered. The president is ignoring it for economic reasons. They've been shadow banned. Most of the you know, the very big, incredibly reliable left-wing media have been shadow banned by Silicon Valley, being bumped down Google search. So I can understand that. But if Assange Legal, the Twitter handle I'm talking about, and I are correct, then that is a dead case. that the Obama administration decided not to pursue in relation to Julian. And, you know, they are going to either have to push ahead. If they do, you know, go ahead with that, they're going to have to try and make it work. But in fact, Obama said that there was it was very unlikely that they could, and you know, they would have pushed ahead with that one, with the Chelsea Manning, in terms of Julian many years ago. So maybe it's good to get that out in the open and to actually stop this whole rubbish about Assange having been charged. It was just paperwork that was filed, and you know, the contents of that should never have been released if they were not intending to pursue that case. So maybe that's a good thing.
That's an excellent point, Kathy. That really is an excellent point. Yes, because if they could have done it, they would have done it by now, and just gone ahead and unsealed them, and had Britain or the UK take some action to towards Assange by asking Ecuador to pass him on or something. You know, it doesn't really make sense that they would just leave them sitting there, other than they're trying to find a legal way of getting Assange out of the embassy. You know, that's always a possibility. But yeah, I hadn't actually even thought of that.
But
yes, I think they were trying to...
It's a dangerous move because, in terms of Julian, because, you know, his life, it's terrible that the world's greatest journalist, his life has to hang in the balance to get the truth out about that one. I mean, they may have to save face and somehow push ahead with the Chelsea Manning case, with, you know, trying to prove that Julian instructed Chelsea, and that we debunked that a long time ago, because Chelsea was an analyst. Chelsea needed absolutely no instruction whatsoever on how to submit documents to WikiLeaks. You know, so there was no way that Julian would have to talk him through it. Sorry, dead named.
Bjorn's showing us something. Do you want to present something, Bjorn?
I just wanted to see if it is possible to show, but that's not working too well. Is it mirrored?
Yes.
It does look like a calendar.
Is it possible to flip it horizontally so it isn't mirrored?
Yeah, in your Zoom preferences, there is a flip left right if you want. You can do that.
Oh, this is on my phone, so I'm not sure if it's possible to do here. I think I'm gonna switch over to the computer.
Do Kathy and Kitty, and Christy want to say anything?
Well, I just wanted to start to introduce our tweeters, because in my opinion, they're doing such a fantastic job, and they're very committed, and you know, we've been spending time daily. Christy has been taking on quite a lot of the work, and a lot of what you're seeing on Twitter is her commitment to making sure that tweets get out every day.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff.
So, Christy, what's your take? You know, you are condensing everything that's being said. So, you know, I can imagine that you have a global impression of what's going on at the moment. What's your take?
Well, I live in the U.S., so I get both sides. I get a lot of people who don't don't think anything bad could happen to him if he walks out and comes here, and that, oh, he'd be much safer if he was in the US, and there's a plan and there's protection waiting for him. And then I, get the people who hate him and think he's a rapist and will take any opportunity on Twitter to smear him. I always kind of joke with the Twitter team. I'm like, okay, the trolls are out again. Like, here they come. And there's the fine line between trying to inform people that maybe are misinformed and then just beating your head against the wall with people who are just trolling to troll and don't like him, period. And then the people that understand, that know what the U.S. is really capable of and what happened to Chelsea Manning. And Julian himself has even said that that was a show trial, and the fear of coming here, being extradited here, and then having the same thing happen to him, and ultimately just going through a show trial and then being imprisoned and tortured, even worse than what he's going through now.
Yes, well, that's right. And what I'm seeing myself is a lot of people I know not to be trolls, who are starting to weigh in again on the whole issue, because it's hit the news again. And what they don't realize is that some of their givens are actually straight out of the DNC narrative. So, for example, the Russian hacking is just taken as an absolute given. So if that's the case, then, and they don't realize that how much they have had that, those givens implanted in their head and where they're coming from.
I think the New York Times, the New York Times treats those as givens themselves. The mainstream journalists are basically dishonest on this topic.
Bruce, somebody in chat wants the mic by Filler Coil.
So I think that these papers that got revealed with his name are important, because I think there is that narrative of Russia, and it's without a doubt true, and he's somehow intertwined and he's somehow under Putin's thumb, and that if he would just come over here and testify, he could blow the whole thing open and it'd all be over with. But I think people forget about Vault 7. I think people forget about what Chelsea Manning leaked. I think people forget about the Iraq war logs, and that maybe these charges are related to something else other than Russia. And so I think that's important to his story, and letting people know what danger he could be in by explaining those things, that these charges may not be related to the Mueller investigation. They may not be anything he can come and testify on to blow the whole Russiagate out of the water, and then he'll be, free to go on his way. Hopefully, like Kathy said, these are things that are just dead in the water that the Obama administration did not put through. And for whatever reason they're coming to light, hopefully to just go away. But if there are actual sealed charges, that could, Vault 7, whatever he's released, other than the DNC emails, that's important to understand. And a lot of people are just not informed on that, or they don't remember that, hey, this was WikiLeaks. This was Julian Assange released these things. They are very important, and they changed America's perspective on wars and our government. But it's not all about Russia, and it's not all about the 2016 election. And that's our media in the U.S. just wants to make it all about Russia, and it's tiring. It's old, and it's not the whole story.
They're using that because that is the thing that got the biggest emotional reaction from the public, and so that's what they're running with. That's
the narrative right now, and anything against it, anything that disproves it, everybody's working on that there is evidence. This is without a doubt a true thing. Russia hacked us. They're ruining our elections. They're ruining our democracy. And it's...
Well, if only they knew the truth. And that's, I've got a fair amount of expertise in Cambridge Analytica. Do you know, the latest I learned, just as, it was a very nice lady who was reporting about the Crown Prince and the murder of Khashoggi. And she happened to reveal in that interview just the day before yesterday that it was Cambridge Analytica who looked after all of the PR for the Crown Prince as well. And they themselves said that they were in Brazil and they were in China doing not elections, but something that they had done before in Jamaica. So something almost identical to the social credit system. They are still around, right? They've gone dark. But I mean, if people didn't seem to realize that all of this Russian hacking stuff, we heard in Australia that they were targeting people and sending them lies on the basis of their personality types. And there was no mention that that was the actual game with Cambridge Analytica, both in the Trump campaign and in Brexit, with the Brexit referendum. So, a brainwashing of a nation on a huge scale. And, we focus on, this small number of people in a troll factory in St. Petersburg to actually, I think both sides of politics don't want people to be aware of, the big picture.
No, definitely not. And in the U.S., I always say it's the right and the left wing of the same bird. They all have the same motives and the same drive and the same want and need to cover these things up, regardless of which side it is.
Yes, and even Theresa May was working with Cambridge Analytica until February this year. Oh, actually, was it this year? Yeah, I think it was this year. It seems like such a long time ago that all of this that Chris Wylie stepped out. It was definitely this year, February this year. So, I mean, and she said that, the Liberals hadn't been using these big, data scientists who are ex-spies, former spies, but they're still spies. They're still doing exactly the same thing, but coming from the British military intelligence, naval intelligence, and the university sector, who were given all of this Facebook data, trusted with it to do their academic research, just walk, and then the same techniques were used again to people are all too innocent, really. They want to do a personality quiz and find out something about themselves, but they have no idea how much this is being collected and then finally used against them. We're in a very, very dangerous phase of the internet. And even Tim Berners-Lee is saying that. This is not democracy. So
how do we inform people?
How do we inform them?
Inform them, yes.
Well, I think we really do need to. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Cambridge Analytica are the arch enemy, the absolute antithesis of WikiLeaks. Chris Wylie told us that their MO was to isolate people, detect people who scored highly on two points: neuroticism and openness on personality tests, because they tended to believe conspiracy theories, and there would be enough that they could find to sway an election. They were the kind of people who could be used as marginal voters, and didn't matter where they were. It was what was going on inside people's heads. So they were targeted with conspiracy theories, lies. Yeah. Even Mark Turnbull, the head of Cambridge Analytica, was talking about injecting this stuff into the bloodstream of the internet, and just letting it run its course, that people would propagate it themselves. So you have all this fake news that was very much integral to the Trump campaign, the Brexit campaign. It looks like Brazil, they were there, they were looking after the Crown Prince's PR, and you can see that relationship now between Trump and the Crown Prince. They're both using Cambridge Analytica. as, you know, they're bullshit artists and to manipulate populations. Whereas the whole raison d'etre of WikiLeaks was to inject truth into the bloodstream of the internet. There is no way in the world that Julian Assange and WikiLeaks would ever have wanted to collaborate with these people.
So how do we tell people that?
It didn't before his internet and everything was shut off back in March. Wasn't he either asked or he was planning on speaking at a trial with Cambridge Analytica? Like he had some information and then it was just like he was gagged immediately.
Absolutely. Not just one trial, but both in Britain and the US. He offered to testify in relation to Cambridge Analytica. And in fact, he offered to testify in Britain about 5 days before he was shut down off the internet. So we're talking about March. And then the offer to the United States came via his lawyers, where he was already gagged. So there has been speculation that Julian testifying about Cambridge Analytica is actually the big one that has got him gagged, because they're all working with them, both sides. Actually, Hillary Clinton in her last Australian interview for the first time talked about Cambridge Analytica. It's like the first time she didn't even know about them. But she was saying that you know, for once I could agree with most of what she said, that the Trump campaign were playing a very, very different game to the Obama model of using social media, because they were saying things that were true, right, to persuade people. But Cambridge Analytica didn't care about whether things were true or not. They just wanted the votes for their clients. And it's very, very anti-democratic. That is pure discrimination to target our most vulnerable members of society to sway their vote.
What was interesting about that was that in Canada, the Liberal Party during the last election won a landslide victory, and the organization that did their PR was called Intelligence Q, which is a partner of Cambridge Analytica.
There you go.
And their landslide was based on making the argument that give the Liberals a chance, and let's see what they do. That was the whole every time you brought up an argument for why we shouldn't vote for the Liberals, because they supported all of the fascist legislation that the Conservatives had implemented, you would get hit with this, oh, let's just give them a chance. And by the time the election was over, I was so frustrated with that. It wasn't even funny. But yeah, it was a very, very sophisticated campaign. I have seen nothing like it on social media. Every day when I went online, I got sponsored posts on Facebook for my candidate in my area, even when I was using a VPN that linked me to the US.
Well, when you invite the deep state in to run your election campaigns, they have all that back-end knowledge. You know, they did the National Police database in Jamaica. That's the one that's very much like the Chinese social credit system. And if you listen to the Channel 4 Sting, you know, they talk about ghosting in and ghosting out. We don't even know which countries, which elections they're working on. Alexander Nix in a forum said that they work for both sides of politics. They're not partisan. But as far as I can see, and he also said we tend to work for the incumbent party, but as far as I can see, they work for the right.
Yeah, there's a lot of spin. I mean, even before Cambridge Analytica, there was Crosby Textor, the Australians, who you probably know very well. I think they were touted as the best propagandists since Goebbels, Nazi Germany.
They leave Goebbels for dead. Goebbels didn't know people's personality types or their religions and stuff like that. I mean, couldn't get individual messaging to specific people. Cambridge Analytica could target an apartment block.
Yeah, well, we have to do something. We have to get the message out. a positive message out about Julian Assange.
Yes.
Simon was talking about that, us being a hub of investigative journalism or getting a message out. Nozomi was saying in the last session that how do we target people who aren't necessarily on social media? So yeah, we have to be a bit more active, I think, in getting message out, not just our own events. Our own events are great, but we also need to do, I think, flyers. I think Elizabeth Mueller, Capmema, she's excellent at the ground game. So we need to get that started, I think.
Yeah, but it's getting boots on the ground that haven't been, brainwashed already, and making all their decisions on a whole lot of false information. There's a long way to go in Australia before we get to that stage where we get loads of people out on the street again.
Yeah, I think also, the people on the street have to be very committed to get out on the street, but just give the message that Julian Assange was interested in stopping war. Can I show a couple of clips from him, like his best tweets, because I think he's the best advocate for himself. So I'll do a screen share of a couple of my favorite clips, which you all know. Very famous. If wars can be started by lies, then peace can be started by truth. Imagine if that was on every community notice board, or even a significant fraction of community notice boards. Then people would at least see it. It wouldn't just be the narrative from people like Hayden. So I think if we can just get that message out, if that's on, okay, I'll show you what I did as an example. This is what I would like to put out on an example of what we could put out on so can you see that?
Yep.
But this is one of his other great quotes. One of the best ways to achieve justice is to expose injustice. So imagine if we got people to pin that on community notice boards at supermarkets, at return servicemen organisations, veterans associations, at, gas stations. So that's the thought I had, reacting to the discussion between Simon and Nozomi last time of how we get it out. And if we could also encourage other people, if they see that notice and are impressed by it, that they get a chance themselves to pin it on further community notice boards and try and get an avalanche effect. So that was just my thought. You have the quote, very prominent, and then you know how you see on notice boards that someone's trying to sell a bicycle or something, and then they have a rip-off portion at the bottom where you can take home the phone number and everything. So I'd suggest doing the same thing. It's hard to see on that scale, but there's like about 10 rip-off portions that people can take home themselves, and well, I've repeated the quote on each of the little sections, and also to post on bulletin boards and elsewhere, and given them a chance to download this file so they can print it off themselves. So, for example, download from unityforj.org/Assange flyers. Or some people who don't even have social media, most people have email, so it's an email address unityforj@gmail.com. I don't know if we have that yet or not. But Bjorn, this is a good one for you. So,
Bruce,
what do people think?
Bruce, I think you're right in the sense that the way for us to get, Julian's message out is with Julian and with his quotes and with his philosophy, because that Russia narrative is so strong. There's so many people here in the US that would support the anti-war, would support the truth for information, but they think he's some Russia agent and he got Trump elected, and I hate Trump, so I have to hate Julian too, because he's why we're in this mess. So we've got to get out of that rabbit hole of just convoluted narrative and really get back to what Julian has said in so many different interviews. And that's why I love the Pinterest boards, because I'm always finding different interviews and different videos of him that I've never even seen or haven't seen in 5 years plus, and remembering the things he said and remembering what WikiLeaks was about and has been about. And I think that's really important.
Yes,
yeah, and I think we should really congratulate Fleur for being so rigorous and assembling all of this together into what has become a pretty big library now of both articles and images and films and just great resource material. So does anyone have the address of that we can? It's probably just pinterest.com/unityforj. Is that right? People can go there and... It's
a New Zealand one.
Yeah, it's the New Zealand Pinterest. But yeah, then I think it's just Unity for J.
I don't think I've
grab it real quick.
It's pinterest.nz.
Yeah.
/Unity for J.
All right. Okay. Bruce, sorry, Bjorn, are you ready to... maybe you wanted to say finish off, Christy.
Oh, I was just saying, we try to post the Pinterest information at least twice a day, every day, just to get that out there. So it's always up on the Twitter.
Right.
And a bigger project for the tweeters is, like all of those interviews, you play one of Julian's old interviews and then you're impressed maybe by a particular quote. So what you do is you do a tweet that quotes that particular quote, and then you do a link to the speech at the point where the quote is. Now, imagine if yes?
I was just looking at some of his older interviews and thinking about it would be nice to start bringing back some of those and putting them, because it seems, when we do graphics, when we do videos, that gets a lot of, from what I can tell on TweetDeck, it gets a lot of attention. So yeah, bringing back some of those now that we have this rich library of resources of everything, everything Julian Assange, everything WikiLeaks is in there. Not only our Unity for J videos and interviews, but his interviews, people talking about him. So yeah, it'd be a good thing for us to start bringing those back and kind of recirculating some of those. His TED Talk from...
I absolutely agree. I agree, because Julian is not able to speak to us live anymore. It's really important that we still keep his presence in the media. And one of the best ways we can do that is to go through a lot of those conferences and speeches and interviews and pluck out the really essential parts. And I think that one of the strongest arguments for supporting WikiLeaks is their consistent anti-war agenda.
Yes.
That's why I plucked out the one I didn't pluck it out. I mean, it was a 2011 film that I had made of the RT interview, where he just made that statement about basically that a better media environment, because of WikiLeaks putting out the true the actual documents, so we could be confident in the truth, that would produce a better media environment, and therefore a more peaceful environment, because most of the wars in the last 50 years had been started by media lies. So I think the anti-war agenda one is something that persuades everyone. It's always looming if you're living in America. I mean, war is a non-stop event, isn't it? So.
Yes.
And where do we post our favorite quotes from Julian? Where?
Well, I think just keep them coming out on Twitter and our blogs when, you know, we write blogs. And I mean, the thing is, people keep looking, you know, at what we're putting out, and they spring off those. It becomes the inspiration to actually start writing articles and embedding the material that we are producing. It's not just the views on Twitter of films, which I do realize is getting, you know, hundreds of retweets as opposed to a simple statement. But these documents are being embedded into people's blogs. Christine's statement was embedded in newspapers all over the world.
Yes.
Online news.
So this is something, Kitty, that we've talked about before, is having another Unity for J Twitter account that is freer for anyone to post their favorite quotes. Because the main channel, as I understand it, that it's limited to very much Unity for J on topic stuff.
It's a more professional channel. So we're keeping a professional look to it. I love Christy's idea of going in and pulling out, and your idea of going in and pulling out Julian Assange's speeches. There's also people like Kiriakau, whose speeches and statements and interviews should be gone through, and we should be getting more video clips from them, because people are very interested in what Kiriakau, Binney, Noam Chomsky, and people in that league are saying about him. What we could do is have what we have in PPI is we have a professional channel and an activist channel. The professional channel focuses on PPI's specific events, as well as promoting things like conferences, like the Pirate Security Conference and things like that. The activist channel is really for anything related to pirates. So we could have an activist channel for Unity for J, where we did a lot of these retweets. We promoted people who have been doing music and art, like Meg and Quinn and people like that. All of their work could be promoted there. And then we could select the best stuff from the activist channel and put it into the professional channel, you know? So for example, an announcement of Meg's CD when it comes out and when it's ready and she starts to actually promote it could go into the Unity for J professional channel. But all her songs that she's putting out now as she's building the CD could go into the activist channel. Mm-hmm. So I love your idea, Bruce. I think it's you know, a good way to go. And we should actually, the problem right now that we're having though is keeping the channels going. Now Christy, I've relied so much on her. Like she has, I can't tell you how much she's contributed. She's been so reliable and consistent and always in there. And there's been times when I've had to abandon it because of my PPI stuff. And she just walked in and taken her own initiative and done it. What we need with the activist channel, it's more will be RTs, right? So anyone can do that, you know, from the Unity for J account. And RTs are quick and easy and they don't take a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So if we can get other people to do RTs and Christy and I keep focusing on the professional channel, you know, and of course, Christy and I will both RT whenever we see something interesting, you know, as well.
Yeah.
But if we have other people that are actually in charge of making sure the activist channel gets stuff happening, that would be great. And I think Paula, to a large extent, does that anyway. You do that quite a bit during the day as well, Bruce, I think. And Lander Free is really busy with business stuff. He was doing a fantastic job, but he's had to kind of step back because of his business commitments. But, you know, he might be able to pull some RTs. So we could get that going. I don't know who would set it up. I guess Joe, we could ask Joe to set up the channel, and then we could create the groups in TweetDeck. And
yeah.
Well, I think it's probably time to pass over to Bjorn. He seems to be more than ready to give us that little prezi. I'm going to have to sign off for a little moment just because my doggy needs to get taken out, but it's still recording, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes. I'll watch what you do, Bjorn, when on the recording.
Okay. Can you hear me? You can hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just gonna do say a little thing about what you've been talking about, because I almost haven't had time to do anything this week, but I checked the real-time journalism channel now. Sorry about the voice. And that was really interesting, and it's very along the lines I've been thinking. And one of the problems right now is that we have to stay on top of all the news that happen, and we have to react instantly to whatever people come up with. And like you said, now with the tweets and so on, we have this stream in the Discord channel where the tweets come in, but they pretty much disappear right away, and we don't have any sort of storage of it that lets us go back and see who tweeted what and when and so on. And that as well fits into what I've been working on. I have to just say this so that it's clear. Like everybody in the Unity for J movement are contributing whatever they can. Like some do music, some do art and posters and everything, and I'm programming. So I've, like I mentioned before, I've been working on something that I think is going to be really useful for us. And one of the things that it makes possible is to register everything that happens, and lets us go back and search and look on everything that goes on. And I think I'm going to be able to screen share, because I'm actually on the stream through Tor right now. I wasn't sure if that was going to work, but it did. So if I can share, let's see, screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes. So let's take a look at, oh, I thought I had Tor here. Okay, anyway, so now I have Tor up, and here's a typical thing that happens, that we see happen. And not everyone can see this tweet. I mean, most people don't probably. But this is an important thing that happened on the 20th of November. And we had no way to communicate that out to everyone as it is. So what I've been doing is I put up, let's see here if I can, yeah. I'd like to get this up so you can see the actual, let's see here, and I can see all my apps, lots of interesting things. So here you go. I posted some of these on one of the channels on Discord. And what we have here is different kinds of channels, just like the ones on Discord, except these are connected to calendars. So for instance, for the vigils, we can set up calendars for the vigils, and then we can add lists of event organizers and participants. And the cool thing about this is that it sorts out everything about time zones and all the kinds of information that you want to store. But they can also be used to store any kind of information. It doesn't just have to be events that we're gonna do. It can also be used to store movies that we put out, tweets. It can also be used to store quotes. And you know, with I'm sure you've heard the Abraham Lincoln quote, "Don't believe everything you read on the internet just because there's a picture with a quote next to it." And of course, Abraham Lincoln didn't say that, but that's one of the important things about the Julian Assange quotes as well. We have to, I think we have to document where they come from. For instance, if it's from video clip and so on, then we should have a reference to the origin.
So Florence, actually, there's a kind of a movement in the Pinterest side of things that we're trying to source a lot of the quotes and find the references so that we can have that documented somewhere. I don't know if those will go in Pinterest necessarily or where they're going to go, but that is something working on, is to start sourcing some of these quotes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Are you helping with Pinterest also, Christy?
Yeah, I just kind of started volunteering to help with that, so hopefully can do more a little bit there too.
Wonderful.
That's great, because Fleur could really use some reliable help.
Yeah, I'm actually excited. That'll be a fun thing to do, and yeah, she's done great work on Pinterest, so looking forward to helping with that too.
Bjorn, can I ask you, is it possible for you to embed the Pinterest site onto the website?
I was wondering about that too, if we could somehow merge the two somehow.
Well, that's the thing. What I would like to do is take all the information that's on Pinterest, like all the links to sites and everything, and just kind of scrape it all. So we where possible, we connect it to dates and so on, and to categories and everything. And then we store our own copies of all the videos, all the interviews, all the articles, and store copies of everything. Because like with what we've seen lately, social media accounts suddenly disappear when they're not popular.
That's a great idea, because that will also give us a backup.
Yes, because Pinterest has started to delete things that they don't agree with, or pins and boards I've heard disappearing. So that's a good thing to have a reliable backup for everything that's been done there.
So if you, can you see the calendar on my screen right now?
Yes.
Yeah. So here you have 3 categories at the bottom, like it's Unity for J actions and press releases and Unity for J vigils. So the point is here, we don't have any content here now, and that's what I've been asking for. If someone can go and actually add content. I've just added the latest emergency vigil here. And this, I mean, it's just a calendar. It's extremely easy to add stuff. But if you enter it, let's go into the information. And there you can see, among other things, the times. It shows my local time first, and then you have the Greenwich Mean Time or Universal Time below. And then we have just a small text and a link to the stream. But we can also add links to documents. We can add links to previous vigils and so on as well.
What would you do if you had 2 items for a single day? How would you handle that?
No problem. You can add as many as you want, but the smart thing to do is to add things in specific categories. So here we have one category that's just Unity for J vigils, and they are in one calendar. And if we add all our activities into calendars like these, we can actually share it so that anyone on the internet can subscribe, and then they will have in their own calendars everything that we plan to do. So if we have an action planned somewhere in London or somewhere in Washington, we add the information into the calendar, and everyone who follows us gets it into their calendar, and everybody knows in their own time zone and everything when and what is going on. So
That's kind of cool.
Very cool, yeah.
That's very cool. I like that.
So if you're a really it's not called actionist, activist, yeah. So if you plan an action somewhere in for instance, that's not an action there, action, and I have there. So we plan an action in 17th, that's in the past. We do it on Saturday from 12 to 13, and any time, but we can do United Kingdom. Yes, and we place it in London. Here we go. Free Assange. And did we get the big A? No. There we go. So if we have one channel for, and you can add attendees as well first. So now we added the action, and that goes in a separate calendar. And if we have one calendar for United Kingdom, one for Norway, one for every country, we can add all country-specific actions and those things, and everybody who lives there can subscribe to those and get instant notification whenever we plan something. So that's our information out version, but we also have the ability to let people add things that they see. So if somebody watches Lenin shake hands with a guy he shouldn't shake hands with, and they take a picture of it, they can submit that to a separate separate channel, and that nobody else can see except for the administrators of that channel. So we can not only send things out this way, we can also take things in. And the reason why I mentioned Tor before is that these calendars are only accessible through Tor. So so the editing and everything is done only through Tor, so you can't be, nobody can sit in between and snap up everything that goes on. What we decide to share out on the other end, however, that's that goes on the open internet.
Are we able to, for example, set up social media shares for the events? And yeah. So somebody could just click on, you could go to action on the 24th, click on the date, then have links to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and click on that and just tweet it out?
Yep. So
cool.
Here we can add links. So you can also share links to the event, but or to this information, and share that on Twitter and so on. So that when people click the link, they come to the unity4j.com website on the events page, and to that specific event and the information about that event. So people will be able to link, you can link directly to an event that's planned in one of our lists.
Right, but what I was wondering is, can we also, is it possible to also include the social media links themselves within the event, so that someone could go there and decide, okay, I want to share this event to my account, my Twitter. Yes. I want to tweet this event, and just click on the Twitter symbol to tweet it, rather than having to create a tweet.
What we're seeing here is the editor side of it.
Okay.
So the other side is the public side, is on the website, because the website can show the channels or the calendars and events that we want to share out. All of them can be on in the calendar on the website, and there on each event you can have share to Facebook, share to Twitter, and so on.
Yes, that's exactly what I was asking.
Will we be able to track then, like how many people are retweeting this event, how many people are posting on Facebook? Will we see that data on?
That's the other funny thing, because if we had a calendar here called Unity for J, and we use the same kind of solution that we have on Discord, where it passes on everything that mentions Unity for J. We could get every tweet about Unity for J into one of these calendars, and then we could enter any day and see who tweeted what and mentioned Unity for J. And so if you pick, for instance, Kathy, and search for her, you can see all the days that she mentioned Unity for J. And if, yeah, so then we can get everything that's mentioned about us into one searchable database, actually.
Very nice.
And then if somebody tweets, or if you want to see how many tweeted about that event, you can just search for the reference to that event, and you get the amount of tweets. As long as they're picked up by the system, of course.
Yeah, just to follow up on your request for content, I recall from a stream last week you were asking for that. If you had any progress there?
I've got, I don't know how to pronounce that. Is it bifilar coil?
Yeah, he was here.
Yeah. But I my voice is totally gone. I wanted to set up a tutorial for this. I mean, it's
that would be good, I think.
Like
yeah.
this. But I've taken pictures now. Everything, like how to install Tor on your phone. That's really simple. How to start it, how to add the calendar, the ones you have access to, and the rest are like adding events. That's pretty easy. But we have to have some kind of purpose and what things we want to store and so on. What we have right now that I really want to get in is the videos and WikiBee sessions that we've had. I would like to have someone to go in and just add them and links to the videos, so we get that into the calendar, and the 3 or 4 next ones that come up, so that we have info to put out on the site. And now we just have this one that I added today. And I would also like to have someone to go through and add the participants, and you add them like normal contacts, and just add them and add them as, let's see here, on the events. You can add attendees, and then you just enter the contacts that have been registered, and then we have a complete list of the attendees of every vigil. We don't have to add all the attendees to the events yet, but I'd like to have them in with pictures so that we have content for the site. And then if we have
maybe eventually we could have that automated, that process, because it will take a person a long time to get the attendees up or to get the links for each individual YouTube. Whereas
I don't have everything in the beginning. I just
exactly. I know.
I actually typed in the names and added pictures to files earlier manually. So if we could just have the names and the pictures in, that would be an awesome start, because that's enough to fill up a lot of information, and then we can add as much as we want afterwards. Then we can
I think Flare usually keeps that information.
Yeah, she does. She has it in a table, in a spreadsheet.
Yes.
If you could persuade Fleur to come on this, that would be wonderful. And maybe even Christy, you could be an intermediary.
Definitely.
No, there's an issue here that we have to be aware of. That Some have been talking about like we don't need a customer relation system, and the website is just a static information thing. But I think that what is going on around us right now is very dynamic. I mean, things are happening every day, and I would think that it would be good for us to actually have updated information all the time. So if we hear about a press conference that's coming up somewhere, or whatever information we get, we can put that out, and then everybody knows that if they go to unityproject.com, they find everything that goes on right now. And editing that in HTML files, like code, that is not for everyone to do. But if we delegate responsibility like this, then anyone who can take the responsibility for adding a certain kind of information can easily do this, like add something to a calendar. That's something that's very much simpler to share, to get someone to do.
So Bjorn, am I right in understanding that this calendar format is the conduit to get information into the new website, that we have to use the system that you've been showing on the screen?
Exactly. So even press releases, when you add here and you choose press release, and then you just attach the press release file and set it for the day that it's going to be released.
Okay.
And then you can keep private until you release it. So you can even prepare everything in advance.
So I think, like you said, a tutorial would be very helpful for this. And also there's a bit of discussion on the Discord channel for the website, which you may have already seen. And it related to this this matter of who is uploading content, and I think Susie referred to Joe in this connection. He was here earlier in the video. On this WikiBee, but he's disappeared now.
Which Joe are you talking about, Lauria or Boo?
No, Joe Manji, actually, neither. It had to do with authority to upload things to the website, I think, or something like that. But in any case, we need to transfer information onto the new website, and that's just got to happen. And it looks like this is the method for doing it.
I mean, even if it's just one person who has access to these and can add, maybe it can be Joe.
Right.
He can be the only one who can write to the calendars that are shown on the website. So we can still add calendars that are suggestions.
Yes.
So that anyone can go and add a suggestion for an action somewhere, and if the editor approves, Joe, for instance, approves, he just moves the event over to the published.
Question, Bjorn, does this...
That's shown.
Bjorn, I have a question. Does this run into next year already, the calendar? If there's anything, I do have an event early next year, which could go on. But is this calendar just covering 2018 for the moment, or will it run on to next year?
No, this one goes since the beginning of time until we're done.
Which,
so,
whenever that is.
Yeah. So let's see here. Let's see if we can I select year or somewhere? I think this the screen share thing is making it a little bit difficult for me. So was it February? No.
Yes, it's Valentine's Day, February 14th.
Oh.
In Sydney.
I sure want to put that on Unity for Day. Just kidding. Okay, here we
So
go.
in Sydney,
Yeah.
at Politics in the Pub, there is a WikiLeaks event, and the importance of whistleblowing. But it's essentially an event for Julian, and I've already been thinking about speakers as well. I want to ask Christine back if she's available. She's having a bit of a rest at the moment, I think. But Caitlin Johnson, we have some very, very strong voices here in Australia. Simon, if you wanted to come up as well, that would be actually, I've got the pro Zoom account for Politics in the Pub, so I can, and we, the tech team of Unity for J for our last event, there was about 7 of us there, so just about everyone else but me on the back end, because I had to host live in front of a live audience, so I needed a lot of support. But if I think that same team that has their own channel on Discord, we can manage that again. So instead, and we brought Susie in live from Moscow for that, in front of the live audience. So I really like the idea of having multiple voices. Our normal format is just 2 speakers, but every time I run the event, I always break the rules. So does Professor Stuart Rees. So to have these multiple strong Australian voices, even people like Julian Burnside, who deals mostly with refugees, but has actually been he was very vocal back in 2011. I have an interview with him defending Julian Assange. So big names like that, we can get them in. But Simon, it would be great to have you and Caitlin and other people who are down in Melbourne and Canberra and Brisbane, if there's anybody in Brisbane and Perth. Scott Ludlam.
Did you say it was in Sydney, Kathy?
Yes, the live event in front of the live audience is in Sydney, just right in the centre of, just opposite Central Station. So it's the easiest place in the world to get to physically. Even if you're a tourist, you could hardly get lost. So we, for some time, I've been the digital producer of that event for 4 years. And I think as early as 2014, I started Skyping people in from other countries, including Nozomi Hayase, when the topic was about the deep state, because a lot of people had only just heard that word and didn't know what it was. So I got her and Bernard Keane, who is one of our national security journalists, an amazing journalist, actually, political correspondent from Canberra. So those two, he spoke in the room live and she came in. But I think the very first one was from Spain on the Spanish laboratory, the People's Revolution, and how social media, a few tweets got 6 million people into the streets. So I think the one on the 14th of February in Sydney is going to be a big one. And, I really want to change the format around for Politics in the Pub next year. So we might even have some comedy segments, because there's people like Juice Media Rap News, who are a comedy team down in Melbourne, who've been following WikiLeaks and making clips about WikiLeaks rap news. That's how Nozomi got to know them and how they became very good friends. And they have given permission for their material to be used by me in any doco that I put out for WikiLeaks. So they did a remarkable series, the Juice Rap News series. They covered Cablegate and everything. So they and people like Jimmy Dore and Lee Camp and other comedians. And at the time, there was another comedian in Melbourne called Sean Bedlam, who was actually the social media coordinator for the WikiLeaks party back in the day. But, you know, these segments, and there's countless others, where you have things that people can laugh at. Some of those are often the most successful in communicating truth, because people will share them. They'll share them to give their mates a laugh. So I think comedy, there is a place for comedy at Politics in the Pub, but just a segment, but also a people's panel as well, like on Simon, you'd know, on Q&A, Australia's biggest live event, where the Australian people live tweet, and you know, there are guests, high profile guests from around the world every week, and million people watching. So they've got a people's panel now, where they auditioned members of the community, and I auditioned and I got through. I'm on the people's panel whenever my expertise is called for. They know I'm Cambridge Analytica and WikiLeaks. So if they ever decide to have a big event with WikiLeaks, it's likely that they'll call on me, because there was no other expertise from all of the people who auditioned in those two fields, weirdly enough. So I think that, you know, one of the things I think about the internet is that everything fails if it's not inclusive. And I think that's something that Susie has really understood with the Internet Party and with the Unity for J movement. She is one of the most inclusive souls that is very considerate of people, and the whole way that the Discord server is set up, and immediately people who didn't think they could be useful just talk about what they can do, and in a very, very practical way, they are put in contact with people that do the same thing and can actually work in a team together. Whereas if you tried to join the Greens, they would ask you to do the same thing, but then they would ask you to deliver leaflets in mailboxes when you're, you know, a filmmaker and citizen journalist and experienced campaigner. A bit of a waste of resources. So I think, you know, this whole thing about this whole movement of getting actually into our entertainment system, even participatory democracy, that sort of shifts society in its own way, and it makes more and more people want to join in, because they know that their voice is going to be heard.
I asked about Sydney because I do have some access.
Sorry.
There's a bit of a time lag here, so I keep talking over people. I do have some access to Sydney, and it might be possible to do a live, but otherwise on the stream would be good.
Fantastic. As many as possible. Set up a video wall full of people, you know, I'll make it spectacular. We had a giant screen for Susie, and it just sounded like she was in the room. It's great.
Yeah, I witnessed it. It was good. Online, that is. With this website, I was just wondering, because we seem to have a practical issue with getting the content on, it seems like a little bit of a laborious process to enter the information through the calendar. And I think what a possible way to streamline it might be that if there's an issue with permission and authority, then perhaps one possibility would be to make it such that everybody can upload information to the server before it goes live, public, and that maybe then it can be checked when it's already online by somebody who then has the permission to launch it all.
That's the whole point. I mean, Joe has the password and passwords and usernames for all the accounts. So I'm giving all these things to him anyway. But my intention was to have separate channels that are open, so anyone can submit suggestions or change requests, and those that are trusted to keep track of these things can actually say that, okay, we want to keep that. We can't
Okay.
do that, or
So can we
Even ask
proceed on
questions.
that basis at the moment? So, and like any of us watching this can, for instance, upload the names and pictures of the participants, just responding to a tutorial that you put on the Discord server, and then that can be looked at by Joe and approved, and we can just launch the website in that way.
Yeah, that's the
Great, let's
thing.
do it.
I realized I had to actually show how you would have
Yeah.
if we to make people understand what was going on.
Yeah, and the other problem with
go ahead.
the other problem with Discord is, and sometimes the Wikibees, is that when people make statements and requests, not everybody knows what everybody else is doing about it, and so often they just assume that somebody else is looking after this because it's such a well-oiled machine that we have here. But I think part of the whole thing with this new website is to get around that sort of problem.
Well, I didn't show you the tasks part. I only showed you the calendar. But there's also tasks for all these categories. So
right,
for the vigils, you can set up a number of tasks for each vigil, who's going to do what.
Okay. So I would just finally suggest that when you put the tutorial up, also put the request for the key content that you want, and make sure that goes out so that a lot of people can jump on that. And also it'd be great if people said what they were going to do, so that we don't have some people doubling up or nobody doing something that needs to be done.
Yeah, and what they've done also.
Yeah.
So, for example, for the speeches, Julian's speeches, if you have them all catalogued, you can have people entering how many tweets they've done off the speeches, so you can see which speeches have already been processed and looked at by people, and maybe choose a new one. Or
the opposite. You actually, this is what I do. It's not for narcissistic reasons that I check my analytics. It's to see the ones that are really working with people, and then I push them harder, or I pursue that line where people are receptive to that particular mode of, or that particular issue, or that particular argument that you're making. Then I'll push that one harder and produce more evidence and work on that.
So will that be in the website channel on Discord?
Where I'd put the tutorial?
Yeah, tutorial and request for specific information.
I'm not sure where we'll find the best channel for people listening, because I don't think many people watch the website channel, and anyone can do this. So
yeah, sure.
I was just wondering if people know. That's all. You just need people to know where to go.
And also, like, of course, like it has been mentioned, it would be very nice to have a new site with better design and so on up as quickly as possible. So, but I just have to excuse that I couldn't just do that. I had to do something that could be useful in the long term. And so then I did this, and hopefully we're going to get some more value out of this as we go along.
So is it only the content which is delaying the launch at the moment? As in, you need this information that you've requested?
Yeah, as soon as I have a little bit of content. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's it. We need to run. Yeah.
The calendar's up, and yeah.
I will, Bjorn, I'll take a look at what I missed while I was walking my dog. But maybe perhaps some of this can be actually extracted. Your demonstration can be extracted as part of the instructional material. And then, I wouldn't mind having, recording it for you and getting it up there via ABON, or he could do it directly. But the other thing is it is really important that we get our crowdfunding system going. We really do need money for the doco. It's delayed because it's a bit expensive. I said I could advance the money, but it's going to be a little bit more than what I thought. It's a bit of a risk at this time of year because universities are all shut down until March, and I know I would get precious little work during the holidays. But if we can start get that, a crowdfunding for that and maybe some other specific purposes going, that would be really good. We need to do that as soon as possible, so we got a bit of capital to work with.
We'll get to that as soon as possible.
Thank you.
I have to go now.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
I think I do too. I've got an appointment just a little bit later on, but I should eat and stuff. So I don't know if you guys want to continue, or would we wrap it up now and then I can stop recording?
Probably a good time to wrap.
Probably wrap it up.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I did want to just maybe add a final point in connection with Bruce, because my mic was muted at the time when Bruce was talking about reaching, as Nozomi suggested, the question about reaching out to people who aren't on social media. I think that what you had about the community notice board was great. I think it's a very effective and time-honoured tradition. But I also thought it's not just a matter of people who aren't on social media. It's a matter of people who are on social media and have shut us out because they're just not in the loop. Their own echo chamber is isolated. So, and really all of this seems, everything we've discussed today in a sense seems to come down to the issue of echo chambers and the need to break through them. So on the ground with real notices on community notice boards in physical space is one way to do it, a very effective way to do it, I imagine. And for instance, Susie was very strongly supportive of the banners on the initiatives that a lot of people had, go to a freeway and drop a banner over the edge. That's another example. Two very good examples, I think. But also on the other side, the echo chamber problem is not just a matter of the internet. It's also this whole issue of media virtual reality, with the politicians and the journalists just being shut out of the information. They're just not aware of what's going on. And I can't remember where, on the same Assange Defense Twitter account had a link today to an article which was written by, it was an interview with the former head lawyer of the New York Times. Was arguing that persecuting Assange would set a terrible precedent, as we all know. And he was talking about his experience of having the most resistance to this idea when he was trying to recruit journalists to rally to the cause. The strongest opposition he found was actually from journalists themselves, who, and I think the reason why is because they're in their echo chamber. They really think some of this stuff coming out is true, that Assange is a cat torturer and all this sort of crazy stuff. And they laughed at him, literally, in his face. That's an important article to look at. And I think it really underscores this whole issue of echo chambers and breaking through them somehow.
Oh, I think one of the most effective...
Article, right?
Hello? I think that probably the most effective way of breaking through echo chambers is celebrities, because they completely reverse engineer cognitive dissonance, right?
That's what it is. Yeah.
Well, I like Roger Waters, so I should like WikiLeaks, right? Or I like Pam Anderson, because she's a woman. But then you've got this attempt to just isolate, quarantine the woman, the female issue, and just take it from there and not mention the context. But I think, that's where Unity for J has been tremendously successful in bringing in so many celebrities, because that does make people feel, well, goodness gracious, I trust Daniel Ellsberg, or I trust Chris Hedges, and so they're really going to you know, they're going to be influenced by celebrities more than anyone else. But it's also, you know, all these small ways are very, very good as well. I managed to recruit my neighbor who didn't know a thing. Now she wants to do T-shirts.
Excellent. T-shirts, another way. Real space, bridge the gap between echo chambers.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Just one last plug, because you mentioned Nozomi. So Nozomi couldn't come on today because she was rushing to finish a new article about Julian before the Thanksgiving celebrations started. And I said, oh, well, go girl. Be grateful for WikiLeaks. Be grateful for Julian. So look out for Nozomi's new article that's coming out very, very soon, I would imagine, within the next couple of days, about Julian.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right, are we signing off?
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a great session. Yeah.
It has, yes.
Thanks for having
Thanks
me.
very much, everyone.
Thank
Thanks for coming
you.
on, Christy. It's
Lovely.
great.
Come on.
Anytime.
Lovely
Come on.
to lovely to meet you, Christy.
Yes, thank you. I'll come back anytime. Just ask.
All right. See you later.
You're welcome to come on. You're welcome to join us every time, Christy, if you like. We're
Awesome. Cool.
yeah,
This was
Yeah,
fun.
you're doing great stuff.
yeah. And you've made some interesting contributions and comments and stuff. Yeah, I think we should have her on all the time.
Absolutely. You're our voice in America.
Yeah, I guess the only American on tonight.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it's generally we haven't really had Americans on WikiBees. We get them on the vigils predominantly, I'd say. But yeah, not on WikiBees, when it's important to have voices in different countries. I'm the voice from Australia. Oh, and so is Simon.
Nozomi's the voice from the US.
And you're New Zealand.
And
Okay.
I'm Canada.
You're Canada, are you? All right. That's great. Yeah. But I think it's important to have voices in the 4 countries that are really concerned. So the UK, Ecuador, not so much Sweden anymore, I suppose, but the United States and Australia. All 4 of
I
them.
think we pretty much got them covered.
I think we do. Yeah.
We have
And then
representatives from
you and Bruce are in Five Eyes countries, so.
Yeah.
Okay, who's gonna stop? I've got to stop the recording. Okay, I will do that.
Well, yeah, okay. So the next meeting is Saturday, the next WikiBees.